bar was strong, but we're getting him to move out. This is going to be a very special evening for us. You're at the German Genealogy Group meeting. This month and next month we are having our own members tell us some of their early social history of the place where they came from. And the three we have tonight came from very different places. That's why we got the map, so they can show you where those places are. And they can tell you their story. We've sent them a series of questions just kind of to guide them along. We're going to give each speaker about 20 minutes to tell his or her story, followed by a few questions. And then when the three are done, we can ask questions of all three of them, and then maybe at that time we'll need to retire to the bar. Who knows? But before I begin, do you all know who's going to begin? Have you decided that amongst yourself?
Senor.
The senor. Okay. Our, how do you say that word, President?
Aaron.
Errant. Fred Escheu is our errant president. Much esteemed. He's been a member for many, many years. He is going to tell you something about his life in Germany. Fred Garbner in the center is actually from Czechoslovakia and now the Czech Republic. He will tell you his story. And finally, we have Dr. Iris Busch, who is from Leipzig, Germany, which was in Eastern Germany. Three different stories, and I'm just going to turn it over to Fred at this point, and I'll kind of give you a little warning if we think we need to move ahead. Okay?
No problem. Do we need a mic?
Yes. Yes, we need a mic.
My name is Fred Escheu. 73 years ago, today, it was also Monday. I'm born on the 29th of January, 1933. So I was born on the Kaiser Bismarck, the Weimar Republic, and on January the 30th, Adolf Hitler took over from the NSDAP politics, the National Socialist Democratic Arbeiterpartei. That was January the 30th, so that is today. It was a Monday. And he was born in Nuremberg, Germany. That's just a little bit of history for people maybe would like to know. It just happened to be Monday, as it was 73 years ago. And I was born on the 29th of January. The questions we have a little for me from Lloyd Meyer, and there are 10 questions on there. Where were you born, raised, how large was your family? I was raised and born in Neuss, which is a village outside Augsburg. Is the capital of Schwaben or Schwäbisch, and we are in the boundary of Bayern, Bavaria. My folks, they date back to 1753. We can follow through in our genealogy from the family. All my relatives at that time, when I was born, they were either farmers or artisans, most of them in the construction trades, mason, carpenter, and this kind of form of. Also, one of my uncles was a brewmaster. So we all worked on the farm or on outside the cities. Augsburg was a city, a very industrial city, or is an industrial city. MAN, if anybody knows, Maschinenfabrik Augsburg, Nuremberg, where they made all the big diesel motors for the war ships. And in Nuremberg, done the same thing. Then naturally the war came here, manufactured tanks, armored vehicle, diesel motors for all the for the U-boats, and all that kind of stuff. And also, Augsburg was a very industrial city in textile. They had factories after factories of spinnery, and also where they made fine tablecloths, all these kind of beautiful things, what they needed. So I grew up outside Augsburg. There was during the pre-year of September of 1939. I was at that time 6 years old. We just started the school, first grade, 6 years, just like here. And we didn't know what that meant, actually, war. We will find out very soon when some of our fellow citizens from my village, we were a village of around 1,800 inhabitants. Out of those, we had 17 farmers there, and all the boys from the farmers, they were automatically drafted in the army, and then one after the other got killed in the war. I was raised as a Catholic. I served as an older boy, and through the school years, when there was a funeral for our soldiers that got killed, we naturally got off the school and had to go to church and be an older boy, and then to the cemetery if there was a body. So those were years in 39, 40, 41, and then the war actually came to our area, Bavaria. We had pretty much at least once a week, in the beginning in 41 and 42, we had air raids. First at night, then in the morning, then in the evening, and then 2 or 3 times a day. And the worst days we had was in 1943 and in 1944. We practically slept. We didn't have air raid bombers like they used to build here, or some people could afford in larger cities in Germany where they had them. We slept in the basement of our house. We had a 3-story house with 3 families in there. And my family, my father got drafted, he got drafted in 41. He was 39 years old. My brother got drafted in 1943. He was 16 years old. He went zum Arbeitsdienst. We were 5 children, 3 girls and 2 boys. And my mother and my father, so we were a family of 7. Food we could buy in the war years, it was not a very pleasant experience. We got like 50 grams of meat a week. You got ration cards. You got around 100 grams of butter or margarine a week. You had to wait in line in order to obtain your food by the butcher or at the dairy store. Sugar, I think we got like a ½ pound a month. And so people really got smart and see how they could stretch their ration. My mother always bought like 20 center, which is 2,000 pounds of potatoes a year from the farmers. So if you look for that, we had potatoes 3 times a day, morning, lunch, and the evening dinner. All there are a lot of ways you can make beautiful things from potatoes. All different ways. That's the ingenuity at the time, people that just adopted to that. Coal, well, we went out into the woods, we picked up our own wood to burn on the fireplace. Coals you got like, I forgot now, maybe about around 300 pounds a year. The rest of them went out to industrial use. So we burned just about anything we could get a hold of. We went to places where they wasted the material or tore down buildings, or buildings got damaged in the war. We scavenged everything what we could do. And they got pretty street smart in this kind of area. Came the war and the air raids in 1944, and one night we lost 1,200 people got killed. During the war years, Augsburg had approximately 180,000 population, plus maybe 80,000. Augsburg is a big garrison city, a lot of troops and soldiers. We had the Messerschmitt, if you are familiar with those airplanes. We had 4 big, like Boeing had humongous works where they put the airplanes there. And everything got just about damaged there in 44. Maybe you know my sister hiding there. She worked for Messerschmitt in 1944. And we had air raids for 2 days, February the 24th, 25th, and the 26th, constantly, all day, all night long. I took the schooling naturally took the back seat. Our schools were taken by, were used for lazaret, for hospital, for people. They became homeless in the city. Everybody went out to the far country with whatever belongings they could save. So all our schools, they were used, the dance halls, everything, they were used as sleeping quarters for the Heimatlosen, or the Obdachlosen, what we call it, the Flüchtlinge. We went to a chapel, we picked up in the morning, had to go in there, and we were 8 classes, 1 through 8, just like here in grammar school. We just picked up lessons. We went home, went down in the basement and done our homework, and 2 days later we had to turn in our papers to the teachers. Maybe we got lucky and we didn't have an air raid where we could walk out on the street. I looked around to get a job, and I was at that time 44, I was 11 years old, going on 12. And I just wrote a postcard to one of the farmers in Iowa in the mountains and see if I could get a job there. I was lucky there in March of 44, and April and in May they invited me to come to their farm as a cowboy, a herding boy, to watch their cows and horses up in the mountains. There naturally I had a lot more food, I had a lot more pleasant, more to eat. I could go regularly to school. First I got out 4 o'clock in the morning, attended the cows in the stable, and when the farmers then milk the cows, take them out, the milk to the dairy, and by 9 o'clock I could go to school till about 2 o'clock, and then the work began again. So there was a lot more experience for me, and it was pleasant because there was a lot more food. And every once in a while I started making a package to send home to my family. So everybody tried to help everybody and try to survive. And we did survive. My father came back from the war. My brother ended up in the prison. He was 17 when he got back. He only was in about 4 or 5 months in 1945. And they released all the young fellows. Eventually he was down in prison down in Italy, and Tyrol, which is between Germany and Italy. Came 45, the war year was over, and the destruction of our city. There's some paper if you want to take a look at it. They're from last year. We had our 70th anniversary in Augsburg for everybody and for the cities. And I happened to be there, and it was just tremendous to remember seeing all the pictures again, what we actually saw with our own eyes during the war year. In 1947, I graduated, or came out, finished my 8th grade, and then I went to a trade school, whatever one can pick. And I'm the only one in my family started to work in fine mechanic. And as you probably know, I became a watchmaker and a woolmaker. As we start off with 4 years as an apprentice in the trade school. First you started off as a tool and die maker, and then in the second year, third and fourth year, you actually work and make watches and repair them. And after 4 years, you became a tradesman. My wage, the first year was 6 Reichsmark, not Deutsche Mark, in a week. Second year was 9 a week. The third year was 12 mark a year, a week. And the fourth year, we became 80 a week. And you were required to buy all your tools, your own hand tools, in order to graduate from the trade schools. 48, 51, I graduated, and I was looking for other jobs, but there was nothing more different places. I tried to go into Switzerland, no luck. They didn't want to have any part of the Germans to work there. I tried to go to Sweden. They had tools and die maker with fine mechanics there. No luck. And I tried to go to South Africa. I could have gotten a job there, but I wasn't too keen to go all the way down to the Cape. And as you know, maybe you don't know, but my sister married a GI in 1948, and she immigrated to the States and in England. In 1954, I was still working as a tradesman and became quite fluent in my trade, naturally, in Germany. There was no such luck as you could start your own business. Number one, you needed capital, and you need sponsors from other trades. And she came to visit over to Germany the first time in 1954. And I said, well, maybe there's some, maybe it was lucky, maybe there's something over in the States. I applied for a visa. It took about 6 or 8 months to get the visa, my immigration visa. I had to go to Munich. And the paperwork you had to go through, you wouldn't believe it at the time. Finally, I did get my visa, and I booked my trip to the United States on the MS Berlin. That was the first time I used to be the MS Gripsholm, a Swedish ship. And in the first half of the voyage, purchased the ship that was the first German ship after the war, flew the German flag. And January 8th of 1955, I left Bremerhaven, got here to New York on the 18th, so it was a 10-day cruise coming over. And that was my arrival time in the United States in January of 55. So what we have now is about 51 years ago. Through a mutual friend and the family, he introduced me to a jeweler and watchmaker. His name was Eric Allen. He started the business in 1950 in Wilmington, on Orange Street. And a week after I landed here in the United States, on the 25th or 26th, I already started to work there. So I had a job right away. I got hired at the spot. I made a lot of money, $30 a week. That's was the going rate at that time. And I worked for the man. I bought my first car in March of 55. A Studebaker Commander, a low, leading Studebaker Commander. And I took my trips to the beach, and then I went up to New York State. A friend of mine came over. He used to live in Rochester, New York. So I already saw the first 6 months. I saw a little bit of the United States. Came November, I got a dear letter from Uncle Sam. I got drafted. Had to go to Garbner and DuPont Street. They shipped us up to Philadelphia. They got examined, and then you had to make a test, and shipped you home. 2 weeks later, the paper came, reported to the Armory. On the 7th of December 1970, you are drafted. And you could fill out what branches you would like to go. I put in first Air Force. Second, I think I put in Army. Marines, I didn't even know what there was. I think the last one I put in Navy. So I got up to the Philadelphia from the Armory, from Wilmington, a school bus that shuttled us up there. And by 10 o'clock, I said, you go over here, you go there, you're in the Army, and you're in the Navy. So I got drafted in the Navy. I never lived on a ship, never worked on a ship. And then I ended up in Bainbridge, right down here over the border, down the Susquehanna, Bainbridge in the boot camp. He graduated March of 56. I was told you worked on the USS Sierra as a submarine tender in the machine department or fine technical department, and you report down to Portsmouth, Virginia. And that's where I spent the next 2 years. Just the only thing I shipped over from this USS Sierra after we went down in South America and Cuba, Guantanamo Bay. You probably know heard about that. And then I shipped over to the USS Everglades, which was a destroyer tender because they needed a technician, a fine mechanic, or a watch, or I was striking as an instrumentation man. That's what my grade was in the Navy. And they told me, you can come over here, and in 2 months or 4 months, we're going to go over to the Mediterranean. left in September, February we left Norfolk, and for the next 6 months I was in the Mediterranean on the 6th Fleet. I had the opportunity to travel twice, once from Athens to Germany, and then we were laying in camps on the Riviera on July the 4th, and I put in for more leave, and I got another 2 weeks in Germany. So I worked on the boat, the ship, and I fixed watches and watch even for the captain and for the other guys, the other sailors. I made some extra money on this thing. Material I just mailed out, and came by airbags, came over with the helicopter that brought all the stuff in. And so we done our work there on the operation. I worked at the USS Firestar, that was that time the biggest aircraft carrier, to repair instrumentations aboard that ship. I slept on a U-boat on top of the torpedo. That's not a very pleasant feeling. But that's the kind of life the Navy and the sailors they had to do. I got released from the Navy after 2 years in '57. And then there was, if you remember, the Luftbrücke in Berlin. We did not get discharged. We had to stand by in active duty for the next 4 years. So out of 2 years became 6 years but I was in civilian life. And then in 1961, I got my discharge paper. Discharge paper from the government. I was not a citizen. I was still on the German, as a German citizen. I had to serve. I couldn't deny that. No, some of them did. Some of them got deported. Some of them didn't. So I don't know what it was. But anyhow, 1960 or 61, I made my citizenship. And just like you folks, I became an American citizen. I started, when I got discharged from the Navy, when I got released from active duty, my boss, Eric Allen, and he didn't want to keep the job anymore, or the business. He said, if you want it, you can have it. You pay me off. So we formed a partnership. He was a silent partner, and I was the worker. And so from 1957 until last year, I operated my business under Allen, Escheu, Inc. in Wilmington, Delaware. That's when I retired. But in the meantime, actually, 1955, when I came in, I attended my sister and my brother-in-law that took me down to the 205 East 6th Street to the Deutsche Halle, the second one, to the Flushing. They asked me if I want to be a member. I said, sure, why not? He said, it cost you $2 to join. I said, fine, here's $2. I paid, but then the guy came back, he said, well, you're an immigrant. You just got here off the boat. The first year is on us. So he gave me the $2 back. That was Trudy I'm sure. He was the membership, the secretary, financial secretary for the membership. Then when I got out of the Navy, I became more active in the Delaware second round. We had to do a lot of work. The building was old. There was no money. Everybody had to chip in, so we could buy the coals to heat the building. And that's the only We didn't have all down there in the old club. There was an old fireplace down the basement. The truck came once a month from the outside, if you remember, in the chute, they put the hose down there, so you had the shovel to go from the chute to the fireplace. All that kind of good stuff.
Fred,
And, yes,
I'm going to call time.
good. Anyhow, that's fine. I'm going to close up, but I'm sorry I took lunch my time. Thank you.
We will hold some questions so we can hear all three of them, and then we'll have some questions at the end. I'm sorry, I hate to
That's
stop
okay.
anyone,
That's quite all right.
but I want to make sure we get them all in.
So this way I got very active to the club here. And when we sold the building, I was already the secretary down there in the old club in 1965 in July. And then we moved out here, and I became president for 12 or 16 years, I forgot. Too many years. Thank you.
I guess my name is Busch, and thank you for taking an interest in my story. It's not very interesting, but I'll tell you some facts, I guess. When I was born in 1962 in East Germany, in a very small village, I have a book here that is not exactly my village, but the one next to it, the one that my father was born in. My parents already had a child. They got married in 1959. They had to get married. I have a picture here of my father. Hank, if you want to pass this around, when he was 19 years old. My parents, when they married, it was an odd match, I want to call it, because they came from two very different families, both affected by the war. My mother originally from East Prussia, and as many of you know, that territory was given to the Russians, and the German population had to leave. First they had to stay and work and starve and be decimated. And in 1948, they were allowed to leave, and my grandmother took her 5 children to a region in the very heart of Germany, Thuringia, Eichstätt actually, and it proved to be not such a good decision because here were these Lutherans settling in a very Catholic region. My mother never knew her father. He's lost in action, and so here was my grandmother with her 5 children trying to make it. My mother started the gymnasium, the school that would actually allow her to go to the university, but since there was no money, she had to quit and started to work in a stocking factory. And she met my father through work. My father attended the gymnasium, and apparently the gymnasium and the factory shared the yard where they would spend their lunch break. And that's where they met. My father, coming from a well-to-do family, my grandfather was a shoemaker, and my grandmother a homemaker, I guess. They also had a little agriculture on the side, so very Catholic. And so the two of them fell in love, and against the wishes of my father's parents, they married and had a child. And it made it very hard for my mother to be accepted in the family, but the birth of my older brother made it a little easier, and so eventually they came to terms with that, and in 1962 I was born, second child of my parents, and was raised in a community. My father became a teacher for history and geography, and started to teach in the village that was home to me for 13 years. And contrary to many people's beliefs, there was religion in East Germany, and I have proof of it here. For instance, here is a picture that where I am 2 years, and this is after a procession where people were actually asked to build carpet on which the priest would march through the village. So if you want to pass this through. Also, I have a picture of my brother's first Holy Communion here with my grandparents. My father's parents, who, this is one of your questions here, lived in the village just 4 kilometers, at a distance of 4 kilometers. We would go there every Saturday and have coffee, and my parents would talk. My father's sister lived there, and so I have some very fond memories of being in very close contact as a child with my grandparents. My mother's mother lived in our house, and that wasn't easy, always. So, also what we did, as I said, my grandparents had agriculture, and in East Germany, people also were allowed to keep or to raise animals in their homes. Actually, it was encouraged by the government, and so my grandparents had room to have 3 pigs. And so one for them, and one for my father's sister, and one for my father. And so in November and December, we would go and have these great butchering parties, and it was always interesting for our children to witness this act, and then to eat the fresh meats and sausages. It was very special. Then in 1969, I started school. I have here a picture of my last day in kindergarten, and also my first day in school. As you all know, in Germany you get a Zuckertüte. We did that in East Germany too, and it was of course a village school, but yet I think there were about 25 or so in my grade level. And I attended this school until 1976, yes, until 7th grade. My father had, and here's a picture of my first Holy Communion. My father had accepted a position at the University of Leipzig. He had gotten his doctorate and wanted to, also he wanted to get away from this region where there were so many tensions. Not just with my mother, but he thought that it would be better for his children to grow up in a town, in a city. And so he had very strong connections with the University of Leipzig, and when they offered him a job, he took it in 1974 and left my mother, and in the meantime, a 3rd child had been born, and 3 children for 2 years there, and then it wasn't very easy for him to find an apartment for this family in Leipzig. And when he finally had one 2 years later, we were able to move to Leipzig. And there I went to start at the gymnasium, and my brother and I went to the University of Leipzig there. And city life was good. We completely stopped going to church because there were no grandparents anymore to, I guess, try to convince my mother that, you know, in order to be a good Catholic, you have to make sure that your children go to church every Sunday, and it's the only religion, etc., etc. So it was an act of liberation, I guess, for my parents to just enjoy life and their children, and start some new traditions in the big city. At the University of Leipzig, I met my husband, and there's a picture of a wedding here. And he got married in 1985. I studied languages at the University of Leipzig. I was also allowed to spend a year in Havana, in Cuba. Since I studied Spanish, it was the only communist country that spoke Spanish. And so I was sent by the East German government to Cuba, every expense paid for. And that was from 83 to 84. Then I came back, and in 85 I finished. I graduated from the University of Leipzig, and I also got married. And started a job. The system in East Germany was such that the university selected a job for you. In other words, you weren't allowed to find your own job. They would assign it to you, and you had to take it. For the first 2 years, you had to stay there. And I was quite happy, actually, with my assignment. It was in Leipzig. My husband taught Spanish at the University of Leipzig, and so it was actually perfect for us. The apartment situation was a little bit more difficult. In East Germany, all apartments were government-owned, and so they were also given to you according to the size of your family and your need. And I guess we weren't needy enough, so we had a very lousy apartment. In 1986, our daughter was born, and so that put us up on the list a little bit higher, and but actually not high enough. And so eventually, when it was winter time and there was no running water in the apartment, I got all my courage together and wrote a letter to Erich Honecker, which was the president of East Germany, and explained the situation and asked whether it would be possible to get a better apartment. And 6 weeks later, there was a letter in the mail, and they asked us to appear before a committee and explain why we had written this letter to the president. And but suddenly there was an apartment, and so we moved, and it was much better. Actually had a bathroom, which wasn't very common in, I guess, even in the mid-80s for East German apartments. Well, life in East Germany was, a lot of people think it was very hard. It wasn't hard per se. I mean, we didn't have a lot of the nice things that people take for granted. Clothing, cars, that was difficult at times. Food items, desirable food items such as tropical fruit, or that stuff wasn't available. But it was just, everyday life. You go to work, you have a family. But in the late 80s, the situation deteriorated in the East, and there was, you probably all are aware of the peaceful revolution that actually started in the city of Leipzig. People got very, very impatient. They wanted to see political change. They wanted to have more opportunities. They wanted to travel, and so people started to flee East Germany. First they went to the Czech Republic and occupied the West German embassy and hung out there, and then they were allowed to leave. And the East German leader said, well, if they want to leave, just let them leave. We won't privateer, just let them go. And that made people very angry. And so that's when the demonstrations, the marches started. And Leipzig, of course, played a very important role in that process. And when the wall fell, I was asleep. I wasn't aware of it. Somebody called us the next day from West Germany and said, oh my God, the wall has fallen. And we were like, what? We had gone to bed, and then the news came on, and people apparently had been to West Berlin and back, and it was just such a joyous event. And so we took our first trip to West Germany in November of 1989, and then started to travel more. And then in 1991 we came to the United States, and that's also an interesting story because it was just through a private contact that we had with a professor from the University of Delaware who had attended a linguistic convention, I guess, in Poland in 1988, and where we had met my husband, and the two of them talked, and this Professor Lathrop is his name, thought, oh, it would be nice for him to come to Delaware and teach Spanish just for a year or so to get that on his resume. It would look good. And so my husband said, yeah, it sounds like a great plan, but with the wall and everything, we really can't leave. And then after the fall of the wall, 2 days later, this professor called and asked us whether we were still interested. And my husband said, yes, that'd be great, but at that time his mother was actually had been diagnosed with cancer, and we didn't know how long she would live, and but maintained contact with this professor. And my mother-in-law, who lived in Arnstadt in Thuringia also, but at least 2 hours by train away from Leipzig, died in December of 1990. And so then we decided, why not try that? Why not take this chance and just take a leave of absence from our jobs and go and see what America is all about? And of course, we had all of the stereotypical views. We thought everybody carried a gun, and I really didn't want to live on the first floor. I made sure that the apartment was on the second floor, and so everybody eats at McDonald's. And so when we actually arrived here, we did go to McDonald's the first day, and tried to see what people were eating and doing, and because we didn't know McDonald's. And I was talking German with our daughter Stephanie, who by then was 5 years old, but we didn't speak English, of course. And there was this lady who stared at us from the door, from the table next to us, and it was Susan Vicari. And a lot of you probably know Susan. And so she came over and said, "Oh, are you from Germany?" And she had just returned from Germany and with her husband Klaus, and so we got into talking, and she said, "Oh, and by the way, in a few weeks we're going to have the Oktoberfest at the Delaware Sängerbund, and why don't you come?" And we didn't know what an Oktoberfest was, of course, and I remember arriving, and I think it was Fred Escheu who stood there in his lederhosen, and I had never seen a person in lederhosen, and I had to come to the United States to see a person in lederhosen and to experience Bavarian culture. And so that was my introduction to the Sängerbund. But quite frankly, in 1991, I thought, we're going to go back to Germany anyway. I'm not going to join this club. I'm German. What do I need this club for? And then we extended our visit, so to speak, and I got a permanent position at the university first, and my husband then in 1995, and things developed, and we kind of lost track of things back home, and this became more real, and then we just thought, let's join the Delaware Sängerbund. We need this now. This is important to us, for our daughter, for just to be surrounded by people who have the same stories, and it's been really great for us. I love coming here, I love contributing. I wish my daughter were more interested, but she isn't. But my husband and I, he's in the communications committee, I work in the culture committee. It's a lot of fun. I get a lot out of this, and so coming to the United States has been great for us, and we're in the process of becoming American citizens. Dual citizens, we won't give up our German citizenship, but now the German government, of course, allows dual citizenship, and so we're doing that, and we're hoping to continue to be happy here. We're very happy and thankful for all of the opportunities that were given to us through the immigration and starting a new life here.
It's me now. I was born in 1940 in Czechoslovakia. Now it's called Czech Republic. We split in 1992. I was born in an area called Sudetenland, outside the city of Karlsbad. It's a well-known resort I grew up in a little village, right after Hitler got his Sudetenland back, and I didn't understand nothing then days, but I understand more now what really happened. After Sudetenland, after Hitler got back to Sudetenland, Germans turned against the Czechs. Czechs got a little bit scared, but Hitler didn't stop in Sudetenland and take the whole country. And after that, I was living with my mom because her first husband died young, at 35 years old, on illness. My father, he was drafted, he was sent to Russia, on the Russian front. He died on the Russian front, somewhere outside of Stalingrad. I never met him. I was probably a year old. I got a couple of pictures of him. And he worked me when I was, I think, 6, 8 months old. So I never know him. After that, after the war, all these Sudetendeutschen had to leave Czechoslovakia. My mom was married to a Czech, so she was able to stay. And we speak only German, so now I had to go to a Czech school because our German school in our little village was closed. We painted over the sign and just closed it. And I had to go to Czech school. I flunked first class because I didn't speak the language. After that, I grew up in the Czechs till 1948. Then communists took over, and since we had a German background, communists never trust us. Actually, Czechs never trust us either. We lost our, actually, we lived without a citizenship in the Czech Republic. It's called state laws for 11 years. But in 1954, I finished the basic schooling, and I wasn't allowed to go to other schools because of my German background, but they allowed me to go in the trade school for 4 years. After that, after 4 years trade school, I did pretty good. I was drafted to the Czech army. As a state law, so it means you never got a gun, you just was a soldier in uniform, and never learned how to fight this. He put us in a, it was like a working outfit. We built bunkers, this kind of stuff. Mainly, basically we did labor work for 2 years. Then when it was time to go home, the Cuban crisis broke out in 1961, I think it was. And he locked us up because he didn't trust us. Didn't lock us up, but we were separated from regular soldiers. We had to stick out an extra 3 months before they let us go home. After that, in 1961, I got home. In 1962, my mom got a visitor from Germany. Used to be a girlfriend who was shipped out from Sudetenland. And with her daughter who was living in the United States. And her daughter offered me help to get to the United States. I said, if you want my help, I sponsor you, I have to get out. Well, I didn't hesitate and fill out the application for leaving the Czechs. As soon as I put it in, they started threatening me. We got this, you call it, Geheimpolizei, Secret Service. Came to my house, why you want to leave, and what you going to do in the United States, unemployment is 6% and this and that, and I just want to leave. So they left me alone. Next thing I got a answer from them, I wasn't allowed to leave. The reason, because I served in the Czech army. And I wasn't serving, I was just there. And so I appealed. I had to go see, always to Prague. I didn't give up. My mind was set, I don't leave no matter what. If you don't let me go, I won't escape. But anyway, I went to Prague, the Ministry of Defense, and just got in there and asked them, why do you guys want to leave me? I'm not a citizen, I have nothing to do with the service, I know nothing, I never own a gun, I never have a gun in the service, I never shoot a gun. And then some guy in general, he was pretty good. He said, well, appeal it, and we're going to give it to you. That's what happened. So he gave me the exit visas, and I left in 1960, 3 years before I got it, 1965, I left for the United States. Actually, left for Germany, went to Munich, got my visa, and left from Bremerhaven to the United States. Arrived February 11, 1965, got off the boat. 3 days later, I got a job as a janitor at the gas station. I lasted for a week and a half, and somebody offered me a job in a construction company, so I lasted there for 3 months. And the money was not the best, but I had a job. Then I see this place in Wilmington, it's called General Motors. I didn't know what it meant. And I was asking what they do in there. I said, building cars. How much is the pay? Well, it was twice as much what I was making then. I said, well, I'm going to get a job there, money talk. I started in 1965 in General Motors in the Newton plant. I lasted for 31 years and retired after 31 years. We had this program after 3 years you were able to retire before pension. So I retired in 1997. So 8 years ago, 9 years ago. So it's my history.
Since we have the map, we really should find out. So Fred, why don't you come up and show them where you're from? You can each take your turns. That's even better. Germany's sinking.
Moving out this way a little bit, Fred.
Bavaria Bayern is the last state in the federal republic of Germany. We have now 12 states before we were 7 here. Bavaria, there's Munich, there's Augsburg. That's my hometown. And that's all the Bavarian up with the Allgäu and the mountains. You want to see Germany, go to Bayern.
Jared, come show your section.
Okay, if you want to see Germany, go to Thuringia. Okay, you of course all know that the former DDR East Germany was, well, it was divided differently into Bezirke, but it was Sachsen, Thüringen, Sachsen-Anhalt, Brandenburg, Mecklenburg-Vorpommern. So basically this was where the border would run, here. And I was born here near Heiligenstadt in what's called Eichsfeld. It's a, part of it belonged to the former East and part of it to the former West. And then we moved to Leipzig. So from Thuringia to Sachsen. Of course, Leipzig, world famous trade fair city. So.
Is where you were born very close to Fulda?
Yes, very close to the border. A little bit further, you needed a special permission to even to have people over for guests. It was called Zonengrenze, grenznahes Gebiet. So everybody who lived there was suspicious, and it was very. But our area near Heiligenstadt was still, so to speak, free.
Could you point to Erfurt, please, for me?
Erfurt is here.
Okay, thank you.
Did you have a wall there too, or was it just barbed wire, or what?
A fortified border with you know, landmines and
In
towers.
between, the mines are in between, or like a demilitarized zone?
Yes, right here, right here. The border here. The inner Deutsche Grenze, the inner German border. Oh, yeah.
So there were West Germans on one side and East Germans on the other side?
Yes.
We only came from here. This is Czech Republic now, right here. 7 miles from the border. Cars by side here, cars by side here. We live in a little village town.
Fred, were you fairly close to the town of Zeifen in the Erzgebirge?
Zeifen, it's probably in German.
Pardon me? I know you were in Czechoslovakia, but it looked, the way you're pointing it, it looked like it was
Cars by
close.
here, then it's an Eger. Lion spot.
Oh, okay. All right. No, that's further north.
It's right here in this part.
It's just over the border, right.
Okay, we have time for questions, and there could be many questions. So I'm sure they'll be happy to answer any that you have.
I'd like to ask Fred how the Navy treated you with your German accent. I mean, were they upset
Well,
with you,
when
or did they welcome you, or what?
Yeah, I had no problem. I didn't know
Really?
English when I got in. I knew a little bit to get around.
In the Navy, you didn't know that much
No.
English?
No.
I just find that fascinating. Because it wasn't
See, Germany belonged already in 1955. They belonged to the NATO.
right.
Okay? And that's why they didn't care what nationality, but yes, they didn't draft anybody from the East blocks.
Yeah.
Okay? But Germany, West Germany, like we had at that time, we belonged to the NATO. And I got drafted, that's what it is. That was the only time Navy actually drafted. They didn't draft in the Second World War. They did not draft in the Korean War in the 50s. And they never drafted, but they're unsure of technicians. They wanted some professional people in to stay in the Navy, to ship over as a career. And they drafted only 20,000. I was one of the few ones that drafted in 1950, late 54 and 55.
Fred, I'd like to know where you met your wives. You all come in here.
I have to come to the United States to meet her. I met her here 31 years
And
ago.
where is she from?
Holland.
Oh.
Amsterdam, born in a windmill.
And what about you, Fred?
My wife Linda, she's born in Wilmington and raised in Delaware City. And we met on Orange Street in 1955. She was working for DuPont. We didn't get married until 59. So we had a pretty long courtship.
Iris, did you have to learn Russian then in school first?
Yeah, we had to think in a
Yes.
fourth grade.
When
Fourth
did you
grade.
start with your Spanish?
At the university. At the university. Russian was the language. In 5th grade, you started Russian. And then in the 7th grade, they gave you a choice, English or French. But a lot of times, like my school, it was a small village school. We only had an English teacher, so they never really could offer French. But in the cities, they would offer English or French in the 7th grade. But the second foreign language really wasn't, unless you really wanted to go to college, onto the gymnasium, it played a bigger role. But for those who, finished up in the 10th grade, Russian was the language. Everybody hated it. Everybody hated it, but had to do it.
Fred, I have a question about your mother. She was in the Sudetenland. How long had her family been in that area?
You know, I never met her family. Here, when these Germans had to leave Czechoslovakia, I was only 5 years old. They all left to the west. They lived around also in East Germany, around Dresden, Leipzig, and them cities. So I never met him.
So she had come from Germany to Czechoslovakia?
My mom?
Yeah,
No, she was born there.
she was born
But see, after the war, everybody, all the Germans had to leave. But since my mom's first husband was a Czech, he didn't have to leave. I remember the whole village was wiped out. Only one family stayed. It was my mom's family. My mom and me. Because my father was already killed during the war. So I remember times, I was little, at 5, 6 years old, people bringing things to our house to hide it and say, well, we're going to come back on this, you know, we're going to get it later, because they've been allowed to take only what you can carry on their backs. And since it was so close to the border, a lot of people left and came back at night and pick up some more stuff and left again, you know, and that's how they used to do it.
So they could get across the
Oh,
border.
then days was no, you know, no guards, right away after the war, 1944, 46. So a lot of times they came back, Czechs catch him, the Czechs police catch him, they put him on a truck and shipped him right back again to Germany. But they left everything behind, houses, businesses, hotels. Really what belongs to Germans was technical. They're still fighting over that stuff. But that's forgot. The younger people have no interest in it, and the older people dying out, so.
Fred, did your mom come over here later? Or?
No, she passed away in 1968, about 3 years, 1969. I went home for first time 68, and one more time, 68 I went home. It's when they had a new leader, Dubček was called Dubček. He tried to make some changes, but then Russians moved in. I was just there, it was on my birthday, August 21st, when Russians moved in. So my mom, spring, yeah. So my mom said, get your stuff and hit the road back. Because she had a visa too to go visit her son in West Germany. See, my half brother, family was also shipped out from Karlsbad to Germany. But since his dad was a Czech, he didn't have to go. But he was married to this German lady. Her parents had to leave. And she said she don't want to stay, she wants to go too. So he got a kinderwagen, her 6 months old baby, pushed it over the border to Germany. He never came back to visit Czechoslovakia after that. But my mom was able to visit him a couple of times after the war. And in 1968, she had everything set. I would take her there, see her son one more time, my brother, my half brother. Then Russians moved in, and that was it. So she said, I'm not going nowhere, I stay right here. A year later, she passed away. She never came. I wish she would see the United States. But she was already up there. She was already 68 years old, 69 years old, but she would make that trip. She would live a couple more years, she would make it.
Iris, tell us about your year in Cuba.
Excuse me?
Your year in Cuba. What were your impressions? In Cuba?
Yeah. How it was?
Yeah.
It was wonderful. I remember, well, first of all, I was selected because my family did not have any relatives in West Germany. That was the main condition, because Interflug, the East German airline company, had to stop to refuel in Newfoundland. And of course, as an East German citizen, you could have stayed there, asked for asylum and defect. And with relatives in West Germany, it would have made it a lot easier for a young person to settle and get help. So a year prior to my departure, the Secret Service would investigate our family, ask neighbors about my, boyfriends, etc., etc. And when it was all clear, when I was found to be a good citizen, I was allowed to fly out. And there were 9 students that year, 3 from Rostock, 3 from Berlin, and 3 from Leipzig. And so we were all gathered in Berlin and instructed to not talk to the Cubans. It was the most bizarre thing. I mean, we were supposed to go there to learn the language, and yet we were supposed to stay away from the people. And we thought that was really weird. And so the moment we landed in Havana, our passports were taken away. We were taken to the East German embassy in Havana and told, don't do this, don't do that, and yada, yada, yada. And we never followed those instructions. But the year in Cuba was fantastic. I remember seeing palm trees for the first time in my life, and just tropical climate, the people, the friendliness, and learning the language in the country where they actually spoke it, and the travel and all the adventures. It was wonderful. I gained 10 pounds because the food was so bad. My mother, that was the first thing she said to me when they picked me up from the airport. Oh my God. So anyway, but it was a wonderful experience. The only negative thing was that my parents couldn't talk to me on the phone for a whole year. Letters had to be sent via the East German Secret Service in Berlin, so my parents would have to address it to Berlin, I would have to address it. No one was supposed to know where I was, and they couldn't send me anything. And in 1983, the Cubans were on coupons. In other words, they were given like 2 pieces of underwear per person a year, 2 toys per child per year. So we could never go into a store and buy anything. We were completely dependent on the meal plan that we had in the dormitory that we lived in. A lot of times we didn't have electricity. A lot of times we didn't have water. We had cockroaches. But it was Cuba, and it was a great opportunity. And I learned so much Spanish, and I felt so privileged when I came back. It really showed. I mean, it made all the difference for my life, and till today. So yeah, it was great.
It was interesting too that there were many Cubans that worked in East Germany.
Yeah, the East German government had invited not just Cubans, but also people from Africa, from republics like Angola and Mozambique, countries that were on the way to communism, so to speak, and Vietnam also, to come to East Germany and work. And these were government agreements. In other words, they invited these workers for, let's say, 3 or 5 years at the time, put them in special dormitories away from the East German population. No contact was supposed to happen between us. And they would work, and most of their salaries would go to the governments, and they only were allowed to keep a little bit, and yet it was very attractive for them. And but I remember seeing them from far away, knowing that I was not supposed to talk to those people. And there was some very weird practices between the so-called communist countries, the Eastern Bloc, or emerging republics in Africa. But you had to play by the rules.
Iris, when you were in Cuba, if you were not supposed to talk to the people, how did you learn Spanish? Did you have formal classes? Or?
Yes, we were with the University of Havana. We were supposed to attend their German classes. And so through attending their German classes, the idea was that we would learn Spanish. But when we got there, we realized that their teaching styles, methods, and it was all so bizarre and weird, and frankly, under our level, that we just stopped going to those classes and just made friends and hung out and went to the movies or to restaurants or travel as a group, and just by being exposed to real life, we learned it. Although we were told not to do it, I'm sure my Stasi file is this thick. I haven't requested it. My father requested his, and you read some very interesting, very creepy things, and I'm sure I have a very thick acta. But yeah.
What was your level of Spanish before going to Cuba?
It was okay. After 2 years, it wasn't bad. But when I got there, I thought, oh my God, this is terrible. I don't understand a word. I'm so glad I'm here, and quite frankly, I remember leaving Cuba, looking down, and I was crying. I mean, I was going home after a year, and all I could think of was I had worked so hard to get to this level of proficiency, and here I was going to Germany knowing that I wasn't allowed to talk to the Cubans in the student dining hall. How was I going to keep up what I had worked so hard for? But yeah. And then the wall fell, and now you have all the opportunities and watch Spanish TV or read Spanish books, and there is no censorship. I mean, now it's great. But it wasn't that great before I left.
You going to make another trip back to Cuba before you get your U.S. citizenship?
No. No, the university has used to have a winter session program, and then the U.S. government changes regulations with Cuba, policies with Cuba all the time, and our winter session is exactly 5 weeks long. And after we ran it successfully for the first time, the U.S. government changed its policy, and now if you want to have a program in Cuba, it has to be at least 8 weeks. So we had to drop this program from our list, but I can't go. I would risk, successful integration. And quite frankly, it would probably break my heart to see the state of this country. I mean, it's begging children and all the dilapidated buildings. I mean, I want to wait a little bit. I definitely want to go back, but wait a little bit until after Castro. Yeah.
Fred, you go back to Czech Republic every year now, don't you?
Yes.
Do you see, has it changed a lot since you
Yeah, it
lived
changed a
there?
lot.
In what way?
People are free, they do what they want to do. You can say anything you want, you have to worry about secret police following you, watching what you're saying. You can buy what you want, you can own things before you wasn't allowed to own nothing. State owned everything.
What about things like taxation? Were taxes high before? Are they high now?
Probably, I don't know. Before, it was about average, I would say, like in Europe or in Europe. But things improved. People are happier. Like my half sister who still lives there, she got a couple of kids. Each one has a car, each one has a cell phone. I don't even have one, but they have everything.
I have a question to Fred. Did you mention Messerschmitt as your employer? Can you tell us a little bit about what these people did? Because I knew a family that was very wealthy as a kid, and I'm wondering whether...
I was not employed at Messerschmitt.
No, what did you mention about Messerschmitt?
My sister was employed there.
Your sister?
Yeah, she was working in the office.
And what did they produce? Were
What
industrialists?
they produced, during the war years, they produced all the airplanes. Stuka, May, the May 109, if you remember that, they made the Fokker-Wulf, all the airplanes, the big bombers, they had it all over Bavaria, in the mountains, the production. Even in the cloister, Blotter Ettal, you probably know that, where that is, Trudy. They had the Messerschmitt embedded in there, in the cloister, for production. And in 43 and 44, I mean, naturally, the Allied bomber, I mean, they flew their mission from England over the canal. That's the first trick they've done now. They just bombed the hell out of all the industrial complexes. And they developed the first Diesenjäger jet plane in Augsburg. It never flew as a combat machine.
Right, can you use the mic because I'm having trouble hearing. My hearing is gone.
Yeah, Yeah, we all lose something. Don't we?
Fred,
Yes, sir.
I believe you did an awful lot of work on the building and facility for us. Can you tell us some about that?
You mean the facility here?
Yes.
Well, have any of you seen the construction of the German club here? On the tape, the TV, you have? We sold the old facility at downtown Wilmington at 205 East 6th Street in July of '65. And then we were homeless for 2 years. In 1967, in March, we've been shopping around the land and so forth. Mr. Heinemann was one of them. They sold that farmland here. It was 6.5 acres. And we purchased that in March of '67. And if you look at the bound stoop, there was actually a farmhouse. There were the pigs and the cows in there. Upstairs there was just a ladder going up there. There was the hay loft upstairs. That's why you still smell a little bit of the farm in that building, because it was embedded. And that's the first renovation we done. No, the first renovation was the rental house. We worked there day and night in order to make money. We had no capital. We purchased that property here, I think, for $29,000 or $32,000, 29 or something like that, around $30,000. The old building in downtown Wilmington was sold after taxes and lawyer fee and everything there from the federal government. We got $24,500. And then we were a guest at the Officers Club of the Air Base. We had meetings there, we had a couple of flushings there, we had elections there, and then more or less Rachel said, I think you better leave because we tried to take that over. We had a membership of maybe 80, 65, 80 when we came out here. Then we were invited, they were called the Wilmington Tourists, they're down in Clayton Street, the Browntown area of St. Elizabeth Church. We went there. I just want to say the Girls of God was here. Anyhow, that's where we drafted our new Constitution. And Wilhelm Schulz at that time was elected the president. And that's when we purchased the property out here in '67. And then we started building. We formed a property committee. We renovated the house. We rented that out right away. There was the automatic paying our mortgage dues. Then we built the bound stoop. There was naturally a lot smaller, but the front where the big bar is, that was the actual bound stoop. And we dedicated that on November 9th of '69. And then we had the property committee, and we selected the architect to draw up plans and blueprints. And we came up with a design what you see on here. That was actually the children's room, and the restrooms, and back here the bar. We had a half the size of the kitchen. That was the first, and the boiler room. And we built that in 1968. And we already, 68 and 69, we had our first flushing in here. We had our first New Year. We didn't have a dance floor. In fact, people were sitting down here. Everybody came dressed up in tuxedo, black paints, and we had no tile, nothing on the concrete floor. Everybody had white paints after a while for the concrete from dancing. The ladies, they were all used to long gowns that they went after the soul. And so they said, we need a cleaning, a dry cleaning. Said somebody has to pay for that. And so we finished that up in 1969 and 70, and we had just a different kind of paneling here. And we improved an outside pavilion. That's not the one we have out there now. We had a big one of them sitting in the middle, right in the middle of the soccer field. And then we started working on it. We needed storage space. In 1974, we built that 3-door garage down there and enlarged in the kitchen in 1975. We floated in some bonds and talked about building on our phase 2, which is the lobby, and the one-story room, built it out to the Bauernstube. We adopted the blueprints, what we had from 68 and 69, and enlarged them. And in 1985, we built that section. And we got then more and more rental stuff, and our membership increased from 80, when we started when it was 85. We got another maybe 300 or 400 people there, members. And we really put a drive to it, so we get some more money. We floated some more bonds, and we know we want to put something else out there. And in 1994, we made the phase 3, which is the office, the game room, and the library. And that we started and built in 1996. And that's in the facility what we see right now here. Carl Renner was at that time, I think he was president, or he was on the board of Carl. And so we just strived on to improve our facilities. And then the opportunity came along. Our neighbor, Hall Enterprise, was over there. He was trying to sell the property, and there was another 3 acres plus 3.1 acres. So we have almost 10 acres around here. And I myself, besides my property committee and the board of directors, as we've been through along there, they were all instrumental in bringing that project to an end, what we have now.
My wife and I often come in and think this is so beautiful, and we're so appreciative of the design, and craftsmanship, and everything. It's very beautiful. So thank you.
If you see the paneling on it, we threw everything out there. And there's a picture hanging there on the wall. Carl was at that time president, and the years on there, 94. Thank you. We renovated that whole house. We spent $10,000 just on the lighting, and about $10,000 on the panel. It's all solid oak. That's handcrafted. We installed it ourselves. There were just about a handful of people there.
That's what makes it so beautiful. Thank you. Very nice.
You're welcome.
I would like to thank our guests in particular for taking their time and really putting together a very interesting program for us. I'm sure they will hang around for a little while if you want to talk to them a little bit more on a personal basis and see some of their photographs that they have and books. I know they have these things. Next month, we're going to do basically a repeat with a different set of stories. I hope you all come back. These are very special stories. They're from our members. This is our story, and we're preserving this. Thank you very much, Fred.